Today in this lecture we are going to learn Telnet communication using the Cisco packet tracer application. Before we move to the Cisco packet tracer application, let us understand what is Telnet. Telnet is a network protocol used to virtually access a remote computer within a network. It is collaborative and text-based communication channel between two machines. It follows a user command transmission control protocol and internet protocol, that is TCP/IP networking protocol, for creating the remote session. Let us understand the concept of Telnet by this diagram. You can observe at our left there are client system and at the right side there is server system. Using the Telnet protocol, the client system is trying to access the server system. You can observe the diagram. You can observe at the below it is written input from client keyboard to the server. That means from the client system the user is trying to accessing the server system and certain input has been provided through the keyboard of the client system, and that will be responded by the server system. After the server system accept the input which was provided by the client system, the server will respond to the client. You can observe output from server to client display. Now the server through the Telnet protocol will respond to the client and client can display the output through the screen. So this is the process which will take place through the Telnet protocol. A client system will be able to access the remote server system in the network. Let us observe another diagram. So you can observe this diagram. A certain application is written over here at the client side. At your left, Telnet client application, and at the right side for the server through the Telnet communication, the application that will be used, Telnet server application. And you can see below the transport and the internet and network access, all this layer will be in work for the Telnet communication. So using this Telnet communication, the client system will be able to access the remote server in the network, and that will be only possible if the server will allow its accessibility over the network. Any system will not be accessed over the network unless the particular system will allow its accessibility through the network. So the server had allowed its own accessibility in the particular network through the Telnet server application. Then only the client system, by operating the Telnet communication protocol, will be able to access the server and can operate all the application through the server system. The client system will be able to access the server system through the Telnet protocol virtually, not physically. So we can virtually access the remote server over the network. We need not require to go and physically operate the server. Sitting at any corner of the world, we can able to access another remote system virtually. We need not require to reach to that exact spot to operate that particular server system. So that is the importance and advantage of using this particular Telnet protocol. Let us understand the same using the Cisco packet tracer application. So what we will be learning in this particular lecture? You can observe first we will going to configure the switch. We will create Vlan setup. So what we are going to do today's lecture, we will create a short network so that we can explain the Telnet process clearly and we can able to make you understand what is the requirement for Telnet. To understand why do we use Telnet, what is the requirement of Telnet, we have to create a short network. So first we are going to configure the switch and create Vlan setup. After that we will be configuring the router. We will assign the IP addresses in the router ports through the Vlan setup, and finally we are going to configure the Telnet setup where the client system will be able to access the remote networking devices. So before I move and start the Cisco Packet Tracer application, I suggest all my viewers and students who are watching this particular lecture that you should view all the earlier lectures. I have prepared 10 separate lectures for you so that you will be able to understand switch configuration, local area setup, DHCP setup, VLAN setup, router configuration, what is gateway, what is DNS server, how to configure the DHCP server. All these things I have shown in separate other videos. Before understanding or having sound knowledge onto those particular preparation, this particular lecture will be bit difficult for you, for the beginners to understand. I would like to suggest all the beginners who are watching this particular lecture that first go and watch all those videos before watching this particular videos, because without having sound concept over my discussed all the preparation which already have been discussed in earlier lectures, this particular video will seems to be bit more complex for you beginners to understand, because I will not going to explain all these things step by step. Today for this lecture I will highlight the Telnet portion. This is the Cisco Packet Tracer application. Let me start with taking 3 routers. So I will take 3 routers. This particular router is situated at Kolkata, and the second router is situated at Chennai. The third router is situated at Delhi. Assume this 3 router is situated at 3 separate cities. So I will take 3 switch to connect these 3 routers. I have taken 3 separate switch. Now I will take some computers to connect with the switch. So I have taken 6 computers. I will take another 6 computers here for connecting to the Delhi setup. Now I will connect all the devices. First I will connect all the computers with the switch. There are 24 ports in the switch. I will connect all 6 computers one by one. I have connected all 6 computers with this switch. Now I will take another straight cable and I will connect all these 6 computers and create a setup at Delhi. So I have successfully connected all 6 computers with this switch and I will create a setup at Delhi. Now I will connect the routers. So we can observe there are 2 ports available in this router, fast Ethernet 00 and fast Ethernet 01. So I will connect one end of the straight cable to the fast Ethernet 00 port of the router. Other end of the straight cable I will connect here with this switch, port number 07. Let me write down the port number where I have connected this cable. So for connection to the router port I have used fast Ethernet 00. This port I have used, and for connection to the switch I have used the port fast Ethernet 07. Fast Ethernet 07. Why? Because all 6 computers are connected with the ports starting from 0, fast Ethernet 01 to fast Ethernet 06. You can observe all 6 ports are consumed of this particular switch. So I have connected this router to the 7 port fast Ethernet 07, and let me connect this router situated at the Delhi. I will take a cable and I will connect. So here I will connect one end of the cable with the fast Ethernet 00 and other end of the cable I will connect here with the switch fast Ethernet 07 port. Now what will I do? I will write down the port here for better understanding so that we will be able to remember later. So this port has been connected with fast Ethernet 00. So router port which was used for the connection with this cable was fast Ethernet 00, and this port of the cable is connected with the switch and consume the port that is fast Ethernet 07. Okay, fast Ethernet 07. Okay. So we have 2 setup, one setup at Kolkata and another setup at Delhi. So let us connect both the router from Kolkata to the Delhi using the cross copper wire. So we have taken the cross copper wire because both the routers falls under same category of devices. That is why I have taken the cross copper wire. Now I will connect one end of the cross cable with this fast Ethernet 01 port. Other end of the cross cable I will connect with the fast Ethernet 01 port of the router that is situated at Delhi. So I have established the connection successfully. So what will I do now? I have to configure all these devices. Okay, so first I will assign the IP addresses, these 2 setup. So let me start the configuration here starting from the Kolkata setup. PC0. So I will assign the IP address here. Observe 10.10.10.2. So 10.10.10.2. So this is the IP address 10.10.10.2. I will write down the IP address over here 10.10.10.2. For this computer the IP address I have assigned, that is 10.10.10.2. Remember that is why I have written, so it will be easy for us to remember. Now for this computer it will be 3. So the network is same, but the value of host I have changed. 10, 10 and 3. This is the host value. Let me write down over here 10, 10, 10, 3. So and for PC2 I will assign the IP address 10, 10, 10, 4. So the network value is same for 3 computers, that is 10, and the host value I have separated all 3 computers 10, 10 and 4. So let me write down over here 10, 10 and 4. Okay, for these 3 computers I will create separate network. These 3 computers will be assigned with separate networking address. Okay, observe 20.20.20.2. so 20.20.22. so this is a separate address. We can observe these 3 computers will belong to a separate address, separate networking address 10, 10, 10 and 3. Let me write down 10, 20, 20, 20 and 3. And for this computer observe 20, 20, 20 and 4. 20, 20, 20 and 4. Observe. So okay, we have created 2 separate network. Let me assign the IP addresses for these 6 computers. Okay, so 40.40.40.2. observe 40, 40, 40 and 2. So this is another network, separate network 40, 40, 43. So this 3 computer will belong to this network 40, 40, 43, and this will be 40, 40, 44. Okay, let me write down 40, 40, 44. So this 3 computer belongs to the networking address 40, and I have separated these 3 computers with the host address 40, 42, 40, 43 and 40, 44. And this computer will belong to another network 50.50.50.2. okay, 50, 50, 50 and 2. Let me write down the networking address 50, 50, 52. And for this computer 50, 50, 53, 50, 50, 53. And for this computer I will use the IP address 50, 50, 50 and 4. So okay, you can see 4 network I have created, each network having 3 set of computers 50, 50, 50 and 4. So I have created 4 separate network, and each network will be consisting of 3 computers. Okay, so now we can just try to send packet within the network. So we can send packet within the network successfully. Let me try to check to send packet between this network. Yes, successful. Let me try to send packet from this PC to this PC belonging to same network. Successful. We know that we can send packet within a same network, but it is not possible to send packet between 2 separate networks. See, in progress and failed. How many times I will try, it will be failed all the time. In progress and failed. We can't send packet from one network to another network without the help of router. So I have just not configured the router yet. So let me first configure the router. Then only we will be able to send packet between 2 separate or among separate networking addresses. With the help of router we can send packet among 4 separate network. Before configuring router, I have to configure the switch, and I have to create 2 separate VLAN, because you can see 2 separate networking address are connected through a single port of the router. So virtually I have to divide the single port of the router into 2 separate sub interface. So virtually I will separate single physical port of the router, that is fast Ethernet 00, where I have connected this particular cable. I will divide this particular port virtually into 2 separate sub interface. Let us configure the VLAN setup. Before that I have to configure the VLAN setup for this particular switch. Then only I will be able to implement the VLAN configuration to this particular router. So let me start to configure switch. So before that I will take a laptop, because already I have discussed in separate other videos that to configure either switch or router we need to have a skin, because switch or the router, any of those devices does not have their own skin. So to access the hardware interface of those networking devices, I should have a particular skin from where I will be able to access the hardware interface. So that is why I will take this laptop. Using this laptop I will be able to access the hardware interface of the router. So I will use this console cable to connect the laptop with this particular switch. So one end of the console cable I will connect with this RS232 port of the laptop. Other end of the console cable I will connect with the switch. Which port? The console port, not this particular LAN port. Those are the LAN ports. I will not connect the console cable into these LAN ports. Then this will not work. I have to connect the console cable end to this console port. Then only I will be able to access the hardware interface of this particular switch. So let me take another laptop, because also I need to configure the router. So I will take another console cable. One end of the console cable I will connect with this console port of the router. Okay, let me start configuration. First I will configure the switch. I will create the Vlan setup. Okay, so now from this laptop I will be accessing the interface of the switch. I will go to desktop of this particular laptop. I will open the terminal. In the terminal I will keep all the parameters as default it is. I will click OK, so we can access the switch. Observe, I have accessed the switch interface. Enable, I have enabled the switch. Now I will start the configuration. Configure terminal. Okay, now I have accessed the terminal mode. Configure terminal. Let me set a password for this particular switch. To set a password for the switch I have to use this command, enable, enable, enable password. Enable password, and now I have to provide the any password you can provide. So let me provide the password 123. So I have provided the password 123. So now to configure this particular switch we have to use this password 123. So what command I have used? First I have accessed the configuration mode, and then I have used enable password. So by this command this particular switch are assigned with a password ability. So without the password nobody will be able to access the switch. Okay, let me try. I will move out by exit. So exit, let me exit out. Now again I will try to configure the switch. Okay, let me start again. I will open the laptop. I will go to terminal. I will keep all default parameters and click OK. Enable. You can observe after I have pressed the enable they are asking for the password. So I have to provide the password. So password just now I have assigned, that is 123. Okay, so for the security reason the password will not be shown. I have already typed through my keyboard 123. Okay, you can see I have successfully entered the privilege mode. So this is called privilege mode. After you have enabled the switch we will move to privilege mode. If you are in privilege mode you will be able to understand by this hash symbol in the terminal, switch followed by the hash symbol. So this symbol will let you know that you already have entered in a privilege mode. So successfully I have written the password 123. So for the security purpose this password will be kept hidden from the user. Okay, so after successful accessing the particular switch through the password I will move to the configuration mode. So I have moved to the configuration mode. Now what will I do now? I will configure the terminal. First I will create the VLAN. So we know that we have a default VLAN. Let me move out to the privilege mode again. So now I will try to check the VLAN. Show VLAN. So observe we have this default VLAN, and all these 24 ports of the particular switch belongs to this default VLAN. So I will create another VLAN. I will create VLAN 2. Let me create VLAN 2. I will move to config mode. Configure terminal. So I am in configuration mode. Now I will create the VLAN. So I will create the VLAN by writing VLAN command followed by the VLAN ID. So VLAN ID I have given 2. So observe I have successfully created that VLAN, new VLAN, and I have accessed that particular VLAN now. Let me provide a name for that particular VLAN. So to provide a name for the particular VLAN you have to use the command that is name. Name followed by whatever name if you can provide for that. Let me provide the name as A. So the name I have given for this particular VLAN, that is a newly VLAN I have created, is A. So let me watch out. Let me move out from this configuration mode. Let me check out from the privilege mode. We will be able to run the command show VLAN. Observe. So the new VLAN that is created for the particular switch, it is in active mode. The name is A. I have assigned the name A and ID is 2. Okay, so now this particular VLAN is still empty. I have not allotted any single port to this particular VLAN. Now I will assign some of these ports. I will remove some ports from the default VLAN and I will assign those ports to this VLAN, that is newly created VLAN, VLAN A. For that I will again move to configuration mode and I will hold the interface range. I will use the range command. I will use the range command to select more than one interface at a time. So fast Ethernet 04, fast Ethernet 04 to fast Ethernet 06. So I have used the range command. So the command is interface followed by range, and I have selected 3 ports. You can observe fast Ethernet 04 to fast Ethernet 06. That means I have selected 3 ports, that is fast Ethernet 04, then fast Ethernet 05 and fast Ethernet 06. So all these 3 ports I have selected collectively. So you can observe is using the range command. Collectively I have selected all 3 ports of the particular switch. Now I will assign all these 3 ports under the VLAN, okay, under the VLAN 2, that is newly created VLAN A, switch port mode access. So I am converting by this command all these 3 ports under the VLAN A, which is newly created, access VLAN 2. So all 3 ports I will now assign under the VLAN 2, that is newly created VLAN. Observe, successfully I have assigned. You can observe the color of these 3 ports where I have connected all these 3 computers are turned to orange because re-registration of MAC table is processing. It will take 50 seconds for completing the process of MAC registration because I have changed all these 3 ports to a separate VLAN. So that is why the re-registration of MAC table is under the process. So let me move out from the interface. Let me move out again from the configuration mode. I will check the VLAN, show VLAN. Observe the newly created VLAN has 3 ports now, fast Ethernet 04, fast Ethernet 05 and fast Ethernet 06. You can observe over here fast Ethernet 01, 02 and 03. After that you can see 07. So 04, 5 and 6 has been removed successfully from the default VLAN. Previously these 3 ports were belonging to the default VLAN. Now all these 3 ports have been removed successfully from the default VLAN, and those 3 ports have been shifted to this newly created VLAN. Okay, now I will enable this particular switch under the Telnet configuration. I will use the Telnet server application command so that this particular switch will be allowed over the network to be accessed by any client connected with this particular switch. So let me move to the configuration mode, configure terminal. So configure terminal. Okay, now I am in configuration mode. So I will allow this switch to be configured as Telnet application so that any device connected with this particular switch can access remotely this switch. You need not require to stay with the switch physically. Any connected system remotely sitting anywhere in the network will be able to access the particular switch through the Telnet protocol. For that I will allow this particular switch to be accessed by anybody using the Telnet protocol. So what will I do now? Virtually I will let this switch available through the network by this command, line VTY. Write down this command in your notebook, line followed by VTY. Okay, before that I have to do one thing. So I will select the interface VLAN. So this is the default VLAN. So first I will select the default VLAN category. So observe, first there are 2 VLAN in this particular switch, VLAN 1 which was default VLAN and newly created VLAN, that is VLAN 2. So first I am selecting all the interfaces those were connected to the VLAN 1. So I have selected all the interfaces those who are connected to the VLAN 1. Now I will assign certain IP address. What IP address will I assign to this Vlan setup? The IP address, the network should belong to this network, that is 10. The network value must be same as all the network that is connected to this VLAN default VLAN. So all these 3 computers are connected to the default VLAN. So I will assign the same network here, that is 10.10.10.10. okay, followed by 255 the default subnet .0.0.0. okay, first I have to write the IP address, then 10.10.10.10 followed by 255.0.0.0. okay, so all the interface that falls under the VLAN 1, that is default VLAN category, I have used this particular IP range, that is 10, 10, 10 and 10. So this range, IP range belonging to a same network, that is 10, are assigned for the particular VLAN, that is the default VLAN interface VLAN 1. okay, so all the VLAN 1 setup have been assigned under this IP address. So why I have used this IP address? Because I have already connected these 3 computers with the default VLAN, where the networking address is 10. So the networking address for all the Vlan 1 setup should be 10. It did not require to be changed. I should not change actually. Then we will be not able to connect from the remote PC. Okay. So now what will I do? I will turn on all the default port by using the no shutdown command. I will turn all the default ports. So all the default ports connected to the Vlan 1 will be turned on. Okay. So now what will I do? Write down all this command in your notebook. What will I do? Just observe. I will now enable this particular Vlan setup, that is Vlan 1, to be accessed over the network through the Telnet protocol. For that I will use this command line line. Oh, first I have to move out in configuration mode. Now I am holding this Vlan interface, so I have to use the exit command to move out to the configuration mode. Now I am in configuration mode. I will use this command line followed by VTY. Write this command in your notebook. Line followed by VTY. Observe 0 to 15. So 16 port will be open and those port will be accessed. So 0 to 15. Observe line followed by VTY 0 to 15. This command is important. Write down in your notebook. Okay. So now I will provide a password PASSWORD. So I will provide certain password to be accessed over the Telnet system. So any Telnet client who will be trying to access this particular switch, they have to use this particular password for security reason, because password is the key access for the particular switch. Any system will not be able to access without the password. So those system who will know the password will be able to access this particular switch. So that is why for the Telnet protocol and by setting the Telnet server application, I have to provide the password for the particular switch who will be able to access this switch through the Telnet protocol. So password, you could give any password. So let me give password, that is 321. So by this password 321, any system connected to this switch will be able to access and configure the switch through Telnet protocol. Okay, so I have successfully given the password. Now I will use the command login. Why I have used this particular command login? Because Telnet client system has to do login and then they will be providing this particular password 321. Then only they will be able to access the switch. So login, write down the command login. Okay, so I have successfully configured the switch and allowed this switch to be accessed over the network. So any connected system will be able to access this particular switch, but remember through the Telnet protocol, and they have to provide this password 321. Okay, now let me move out from this interface exit. So I have moved out from the Vlan 1 setup. You can observe I have successfully moved out. So now I will again select the Vlan 2. Okay, let not select Vlan 2, it is okay. So from the remote system I will be able to access Vlan 2 because I have already assigned the Vlan 1 setup addresses. Okay, now let me move out. Okay, I have moved out. Now let me save all the configuration in the permanent memory of the switch. So just observe. Assume why I have used the Telnet protocol. I easily would have accessed the switch interface from this particular laptop. Do I really require to use this Telnet protocol to access this particular switch from other computer? Assume that this switch is established in a server room and this particular laptop should also be connected to the switch, and both the laptop and the switch should have been placed in the server room, and all these computers which are connected to the switch may have been placed in separate other room or separate other place or separate other floors of a building. There could be a big building, there could be many computers, and the switches will be kept naturally in the server room, and all the computers which we can see by the diagram could be placed in separate floor of the building. So the network administrator can able to access the switch sitting at any room in any floor of the building. That particular person need not always require to reach the server room. So if the switch had to be configured, the network administrator always had to be present in the server room. So by the Telnet communication, it is possible that sitting at any room, sitting at any floor of the building, the network administrator will be able to access this particular switch. That person need not require to be present physically at the server room for the configuration of the switch. So virtually they can access from any of these devices. Virtually the network administrator can access this particular switch from any of this computer connected to the switch placed at any floor, any room of the building. So this is the advantage of using this Telnet protocol. So I will try to access this particular switch from this computer. Okay, assume this computer is placed at maybe 10th floor of the building, and the server room is situated at the first floor. So the network administrator need not require to move down to the server room which is at the first floor or at the ground floor. From the 10th floor, the administrator sitting at certain office using a computer can access the system during the requirement where arises. Observe, from this computer I will just use the command prompt. So I have used the command prompt. Now what will I do now? I will just write tel net net. Remember the command tel net telnet. And now what will I do? I will just try to access the IP address of the interface. So I have already given the IP address, isn't it? So one thing I should remember. Observe, so I am trying to use this computer. So this is belonging to a separate network. Observe, 20.20.22, but the IP address that I have assigned for this interface, that is 10.10.10.10, a different network. So the question arises, will I be able to access the Vlan setup? Observe very clearly, 10.10.10.10. Observe, 10. So I am trying to access the switch from this computer. This computer IP address is 20.20.20 and 4, but the IP address for the Vlan setup 1, that is 10.10.10.10, a different network. Observe, trying to access through the telnet. So trying, you can observe trying. So it is failed. Observe, connection timed out, remote host not responding. Why? Because I'm trying to access from the different network. That is not possible. Okay, so these three computers are belonging to the Vlan 2, and I have assigned the setup for the Vlan 1, and the network for these two setup is different. So this is Vlan 1. So observe, Vlan 1. So Vlan 1 setup has this IP address. Observe, now I can try from these three computers. Observe, I am trying the same command from this computer, the PC0, so belonging to same network, similar network, 10.10.10.2. Observe, so telnet telnet command followed by this particular IP address of the switch interface Vlan. Okay, 10.10.10.10. Observe, so I have accessed successfully. Observe, now I have successfully accessed the Vlan default, the Vlan 1 setup from this computer, because these three computers also belongs to the similar Vlan. That is why I am able to access the Vlan 1 setup. Now user access verification. So the Telnet server protocol is trying to verify, the Telnet server application is now trying to verify that whether I am the authentic user or not. So I have taken enough time to write the password. That is why the connection has been closed. So let me try once more. Observe, so I will give the password 321. So as the security purpose, the password which I have written has not been printed in the screen. For the security purpose, the password has not been printed, because I may use this particular password sitting at any computer from any room. So there could be some more people who may gather around me, so they can also be able to see the password. So that is why, for the security reason, the password which I have been typing, that was not shown in the screen, because other people who would have gathered around me, they also will be able to see the password. Had this password been printed on the screen, it would have been known to all person, because what will we be doing through the telnet? We are accessing the remote device sitting in any part of the building. So that is why there, for the security reason, I will be with other person also. So the password that I will be typing, this was kept hidden, so that will be not be shown whatever I have printed. So I have printed the password, the same password which I have provided in that particular switch for accessing the telnet application. So I have successfully logged on to that particular switch through the telnet protocol from this particular system, that is PC0. Okay, now I will enable the switch. Okay, now observe, another password is asking for. So remember, I have also given a password for the switch. So anybody who will be able to access the switch, certain password they have to provide. But that password I have provided already. We have seen 1 2 3. So again the password is kept hidden so that anybody who is around me will not able to watch the password. Typing successful password, I can able to move to the privilege mode. You can observe the change in symbol, switch followed by hash. So from this PC I am able to access and I can do any configuration, any desired configuration. So observe configure terminal. So now I have moved to the configuration mode. So what will I configure? So just observe. Let me create the VLAN. Let me hold the interface of VLAN 2. Interface VLAN 2. So now I have selected the interface VLAN 2. Observe. Now I have selected the interface VLAN 2 successfully. So now I am going to assign the IP range for that particular setup. Okay. So IP address 20.20.20.20 followed by 255 the subnet .0.0.0. Observe 20.20.20.20. Why? Because VLAN 2, we know that the VLAN 2 setup, all the system that is connected with the VLAN 2 setup has the IP address of 20, networking address that is 20.20.20.20. So that is why observe I have assigned the VLAN 2 setup with the IP address 20.20.20.20 because all these three computers are connected with the VLAN 2 setup belonging to the similar network 20. So that is why I am going to assign 20.20.20.20 as the range IP address for accessing the VLAN 2 interfaces. Any port of belonging to the VLAN 2 interfaces will be accessed by this IP address from the remote client system. Observe. So let me move out again. Let me move out from the config mode. So now I am in privilege mode. I will just go and check the VLAN setup. So VLAN, observe from this system I am accessing, and I can check the VLAN setup. VLAN 2 has 3 ports. VLAN 1 have this many number of ports. So what will I do? I will just shift some more port from VLAN 1, that is default VLAN, to this particular newly created VLAN, that is VLAN 2. So whatever I have done from this system, the same I will do from here, from this particular computer sitting at anywhere in the building. So let me do the same. Configure terminal. Let me select the interface. I will use the range command. Range fast Ethernet 08, fast Ethernet 08 to fast Ethernet 15. So you can observe fast Ethernet 08 to all ports till fast Ethernet 015. I have selected, you can observe 8 ports starting from fast Ethernet 08 to fast Ethernet 015. So I have selected all these ports. Now all these ports I will shift under the VLAN 2. So observe switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 2. Observe. So I have successfully shifted this many number of ports under the VLAN 2. But this thing I am doing from this computer, I am not doing the same from this laptop. So remotely I have accessed this particular switch and doing all the configuration. Let me check out. So VLAN, observe. So observe now this particular VLAN have this many number of ports. Okay, so this thing I have done sitting at this particular computer. Okay, now just let me check out whether I will be able to access the switch from these 3 computers or not. So okay, let me move out, exit. Let me provide a name for the switch. Let me provide a name, configure terminal, and I would like to provide the name for this particular switch. So for that name I will provide name, host name, and okay, what could be the name? Hash followed by any name you can give, and give A1 followed by hash. So the name of this particular switch I have assigned A1. Name followed by A1. Observe. We can observe that previously the name of this particular switch was switch by default, but now the name of that particular switch has been changed to A1. Observe. Okay, let me move out. Now I will try to access this switch from the VLAN 2 setup. So these 3 computers are connected to the VLAN 2 setup. I will try to access the switch from this setup. Previously I was unsuccessful to access this switch from these computers. You do remember, I think. Why? Because I have that time I had not assigned the value for this VLAN 2. So but now I have assigned the value for this VLAN 2 from this computer. So that is why I will be able to access the switch here from this any computer connected to the VLAN 2. Observe command telnet telnet. So I will try to access VLAN 2 setup, that is 20.20.20.20. Observe. So asking for password of the particular switch. To do telnet, to access the telnet server, I have to give password. So security purpose password was not shown to me. Okay, I have successfully accessed. Now let me enable again, trying to asking me for password. This password is for accessing the switch. For accessing the switch I have to use the password. Okay, so successfully I have accessed the switch. Observe. Now I will do one thing. I will disable certain port. So that any system that is connected with that port will not able to work. So let me select the interface. Let me move to the configuration mode. Configure terminal. Okay, I have moved to the configuration mode. Observe. Now I will select the interface FA02. Observe. I have selected fast Ethernet 02. That means I have selected this port. So this system is connected with the fast Ethernet 02. Now just observe. What will I do? Just observe. I will run the shutdown command. For the port. Observe. So I have run the shutdown command for this port. That is why this system will not able to access all other system in this network. This port is now turned off. Because this port is now turned off, this system will be not able to access any other system connected to this network. Again I will turn on this system by the command no shutdown. Observe. So I think this thing is clear to you, how we can access a remote switch sitting at any computer at any place of the building. Okay, let me move out from the config mode. Let me save everything what we have done till now. Let me exit out. Now observe, we are going to provide IP addresses for these routers, because now using telnet we will access the router sitting at the city. From Delhi, any computer connected to the Delhi setup, we will try to access this particular router at Kolkata. For that, first I have to configure all the IP ports of the router. Still the router I have not configured this router, so let me first configure the routers. So from this laptop which is connected to the router, I will try to configure all these two ports. Observe. No. So enable configure terminal interface fast Ethernet. So I will first configure this port of the Kolkata router. So fast Ethernet 00. So I will assign IP address to this port fast Ethernet 00 of Kolkata router. So let me provide IP address. So what IP address will I provide? So just observe. So before providing IP address, I have to implement the Vlan setup, because you can observe over here there are two network will connect through a single cable. So a single port will communicate with two separate network over here. So that is why I have to first divide this particular physical port into two separate virtual ports. So let me first turn on this particular physical port. So for getting this physical port turn on, I will use the command no shutdown. Observe. Now this physical port is turned on. So I have successfully turned on this physical port. So now I will divide this physical fast Ethernet 00 port into two virtual ports. So I will subdivide this physical port into two virtual ports. So for doing that, I will first move out from this interface. Again I came into the configuration mode. Now I will again select the interface FA 0x0. Now .10. Observe. Interface name is 0x0. So which interface I have selected? Interface fast Ethernet 0x0, this port. Now I have written 10.10. So .10 signifies, it could be .10, it could be .1, .11, .100, .1000, any number. So this dot signifies I am just going to divide this physical port in and I am just turning that physical port into subdividing the same into virtual port. So the first virtual port ID I have assigned, the physical port is fast Ethernet 00, and I have I am going to subdivide that physical port into the virtual ports. So first port I would like to assign, that is .10. Observe. So you can observe router followed by config sub if. So I have sub interface. I have created a sub interface into that physical port. So now I will assign the IP address to that logical, or you can say virtual, subdivided newly created sub interface port. So for that, first I have to assign the VLAN. I have to assign the VLAN for that particular port, because without signing the VLAN I will be not able to assign IP address to any of the sub interface which I am going to create. So for assigning the Vlan setup in this particular sub interface port, the command that will use encapsulator dot, now the VLAN number, so the VLAN 1. So we know that here we have created for this physical switch there are two VLAN. One that is the default VLAN, and two that is the newly created VLAN, and for this particular router we have to implement same VLAN ID, so that then will be this traffic will be able to communicate with the router. So for this particular interface, for this particular sub interface fast Ethernet 0/0.10, I am going to assign this particular sub interface under the VLAN 1. So you can see encapsulation dot followed by VLAN 1. So okay, now I will provide the IP. Which IP? The IP address network should belongs to these three computers, and also this interface value where this is connected with. So the network address I will provide 10.10.10.1 followed by 255.0.0.0, the default subnet 10.10.10.1 255.0.0.0. So I have successfully provided the IP address for the sub interface which just now I have created. So let me move out from the sub interface, exit. Okay. So now I am in configuration mode. Let me create another sub interface for the VLAN 2 in this particular router. So observe interface FA 0/0. Now the another interface I will create, that is 20 observe dot 20. So successfully I have created another sub interface. Now I will assign this particular sub interface under the VLAN 2 for this part of the network to be accessed through the sub interface, that is fast Ethernet 00.20 observe. So encapsulation dot q followed by the VLAN ID, that is 2. So I have successfully assigned this sub interface under the VLAN 2 by this command. Write down the command encapsulation dot q then 2. So all these things already have been discussed in several other videos, so only I will highlight the Telnet portion. These all have been discussed step by step in several other lectures. I have prepared 10 separate lectures where I have discussed router configuration, VLAN configuration, switch configuration, DHCP, DNS, everything I have discussed, local LAN configuration, DHCP configuration, step by step. Everything has been explained in those previous 10 lab session. I would like to suggest all the beginner student to go and watch that particular all those series of videos, so that you will be able to understand and you can develop clear and sound concept of this thing, of this kind of preparation before watching this particular Telnet configuration. Okay, so let me continue. So now I will assign IP address. So which IP address? You can see, you can observe that this VLAN 2, the IP range has been set up, that is 20. The network value is 20. So the network value for this sub interface fast Ethernet 00.20 should belongs to the similar network, that is same network 20.20.20.1. okay, followed by 255.0.0.0 observe 2020 and 21 255.0.0.0. okay, I have successfully assigned the IP addresses for both the sub interfaces of this port. Let me move out from the sub interfaces. Now I will assign the IP address for this port. This port is fast Ethernet 0/1. So this port is a fast Ethernet 01 of the router, and here this port of daily router is also connected to fast Ethernet 01. So you can see this cross cable is connected through these two routers, one at Kolkata, another at Delhi, through the port fast Ethernet 01 for the Kolkata router, and same fast Ethernet 01 port of the Delhi router. So let me assign the IP addresses for first this router, this port fast Ethernet 0 port of the Kolkata router. Observe, so interface FA01. okay, so now I will assign the IP. Observe IP address. So there are port I need not require to break this port virtually, because there are no certain reason to virtually divide this particular sub port. So I will assign IP address to this physical port only. Okay, here I have subdivided this physical port in two separate virtual port. Why? Because I had to implement the Vlan setup So there are more than one network I have to assign to a single physical port. That is why I have subdivided the physical port into two logical ports. But here there are no need to subdivide this port, so I will assign the IP address for this physical port, that is fast Ethernet 01. Okay, so what IP? So IP address 30.30.30.1.255.0.0.0. Observe 30.30.31.255.0.0.0. So already I have assigned the IP address. Now no shut, so I will make this port turn on. So after I have applied the no shut command into this particular fast Ethernet port, you can observe still the color is red. The color has not turned to green because the other end of this port, this cable is connected here. You can see this cable is connected, one end of the cable is connected to the Kolkata router, other end of the cable is connected to the Delhi router. So the Kolkata router fast Ethernet 01 port has been turned on, but the Delhi router fast Ethernet 01 port is still shut down, still it is turned off. So unless and until I will turn on this particular port, that is fast Ethernet 01 port of the Delhi router, this network will not active to live. So that is why we can see the color of the cable is, the color of the corresponding ports is still red. It has not turned to green yet. So let me move out. I have already applied shutdown command. So this particular port is turned on. There is no confusion. So let me move out. Let me save, exit, and let me see all the interface. Show interface, observe. So let me check. So VLAN switch, observe. Okay, this command observe. So to check all the connection, you can use this command show IP route. So you can observe I have created here two sub interface. So observe the physical port has been subdivided into the sub interface. You can observe fast Ethernet 0010, fast Ethernet 0020. You can observe this thing. So all it is directly connected. This two port is directly connected with this thing. So let me save, move out. Now I will configure this two setup. So I will take the laptop first, another laptop for router configuration. Now I will connect with cable, observe same thing which I have done for the Kolkata setup. I will repeat the process for Delhi setup. So I am not going to explain because already this thing has been explained. I will just follow the step quickly so that I can end up this particular lecture as quick as possible. So you just follow the step that I will be following. I will be writing. You just go through the commands without much explanation. I will just go through all the commands. Observe. So I will use the range. I will select all three fast Ethernet 04 to fast Ethernet 06. Observe 4, 5, 6, and I will assign. First I have to create the VLAN. Observe. So VLAN 2. So okay, I have created the VLAN 2. Now I will give a name for the VLAN. So certain name I have assigned here, that is A. Let me provide the same name. VLAN 2 name is A. Let me move out. Now I will use the range command. So select three port. I have selected collectively 3 port using this range command. Observe. Using this range command I have selected 3 port collectively. Now switch port mode, access mode. So switch port mode, access, switch port access VLAN 2. So you can observe by this command switch port. So ignore all this thing. Okay, so first I have selected the range. After that I have accessed those particular port and I am trying to convert those into the under the VLAN 2. So ignore this 3 line. So write down this line in the notebook, followed by this line, and that will be followed by this line. Okay, let me check. You can observe these 3 ports are connected to these three computers are connected to these 3 ports. That is why the color has turned to orange, because these 3 ports was previously assigned to the default VLAN. Now I have shifted those 3 ports here under the VLAN 2, that is newly created VLAN. That is why the MAC registration is taking place. So let me check. Observe. So I have created this new VLAN and I have shifted these 3 ports under the particular newly created VLAN. Okay, now configure terminal. Okay, so what will I do now? I will allow this particular switch to be accessed by any computer connected with it, sitting at any building or any room. Everybody can able to configure the switch. I will allow the Telnet application to work with this particular switch. The Telnet client using the Telnet protocol can able to access the switch. For that, first I will do one thing. I will enable password for accessing this particular switch. Password will be any password you can provide. Let me provide the password 123. So if I had to configure the switch either from this laptop or from any computer connected in the network to the switch need to provide this password. Okay, let me check. So if I try to access the switch, observe, see, they're asking for password. So that is why, because I have assigned the password. Okay, so after providing the password, I can able to access the switch. So I have to provide the password. Observe, configure terminal. So I am accessing the switch from these laptops. They will ask for the password because I have enabled the password mode. So for the security reason, I have applied the password mode for the particular configuration of this device. So anybody who will be trying to configure this device had to know the password. With the password only, they will be able to configure the switch. Okay, now I will enable this switch under the Telnet protocol, so that I will apply the Telnet application into the particular switch, so that the other system connected to the switch will be able to access through the Telnet protocol and send request to access configuration for this particular switch. So let me do that. For that, I will use the command line, and this will be followed by, so observe, remember this command. This command is required to allow any device for conversion of that to a Telnet enabled device. So now I will use, so any device which are connected to this switch have to do login, so then only they will be able to access. So that is why I have written a login. So this command will be followed by this command login. Okay, so login password is set. So now I have to provide the password. So password, it is required, password is required for login. That is why login disable line 16 until password is set. So I have to first provide the password. So because for the security reason, anybody who will be trying to access the networking device should move through a verification process. So that verification and authentication of actual person who are the admin person, they can only be able to access the device. So that is why it is required to enable the password, login password for the Telnet service. So okay, let me provide a password. I will provide the password for the particular Telnet service as 321. Now I will, so anybody who will do login, and after successful login, if they will be able, they can provide this password, then only the remote client will be able to access the remote device. Okay, now I have set the password. Let me move out. Okay, now exit. Let me save. Okay, exit. So let me try this thing. So one thing I need to do, I have to assign the IP address for the interface. For do that, I have to again enter password. This password is for the switch. So I will configure the switch. So I will access the interface VLAN 1 as the same I have done for this switch. The client will be able to access the switch by accessing the interface. So that is why I will assign the IP address for this all the ports that is connected to the default VLAN. So for the default VLAN, I will default VLAN 1 for the switch. You know that these three computers are connected to the VLAN 1. So that is why I will provide the default VLAN IP range as 40.40.40.40 followed by 255.0.0.0. Observe, IP address followed by 40.40.40.40 followed by 255.0.0.0. Okay, observe, 40.40.40.40. I have assigned the IP range for the VLAN 1 all ports as 40. So network is 40. Okay, exit, save, exit. Okay, now I will try to access the switch VLAN 1 any ports, any VLAN 1 interface from these three computers. Why from these three computers? I will be not able to access from these three computers because I have assigned the VLAN 1 interface IP range as 40.40.40.40. Observe. So I have assigned the VLAN 1 interface range as 40.40.40.40. And these three computers are connected with the VLAN 1 belonging to the same networking address 40, 40, 42, 43 and 43. That is why from any of these three computers I will be able to access the VLAN 1 interface of the particular switch, and after accessing I can do work with other interface of VLAN 2. First I have to get the access of the particular switch, so that I will be doing from any of these three computers. I will be not able to do access from these three computers. Let me check. So I am trying to access from this computer. The VLAN of this computer is VLAN 2 and the address is 50. but the address is different from the VLAN one. Observe, I will not able to access the switch telnet, TEL telnet. Now I will try the interface address 40.40.40.40. Observe, so it is trying to access the switch, so it will take certain time. It is still trying to access. After that, connection timed out, remote host has not responded. So from this particular computer I have not succeeded to access the switch because the network of the VLAN 1 is different from the computer from where I was trying to access the switch. So let me do the same from any of these three computers. Okay, from these computers I will try to access the Vlan Setup 1 now through the Telnet service. From the command prompt I will write Telnet TELNET followed by the IP address of the interface, range 40.40.40.40. Observe, so it is trying to access and it is taking certain time. You can observe respond is failed. I think there are let me check why I failed to access the VLAN. I think I did everything correctly. I have prepared the VLAN session, Telnet 40.40.40.40. Let me check once again if I have done any wrong 1 2 3 of the switch. Now I will assign, let me try to assign configure terminal, and let me access the VLAN 2 setup. So interface VLAN 2. So I am now trying to access the VLAN 2 setup. So this VLAN 2 setup has 3 ports, that is fast Ethernet 04, 05 and 06. So those 3 ports I will be able to configure now. So those 3 ports I will put under the range IP address 50.50.50.50, okay, followed by 255.0.0.0. okay. Now no shutdown, those ports are not shut down, those ports are active now. Let me move out. Let me move out from the port. I have successfully moved out from those ports. Now I will enable okay, this thing I have already done. I have enabled this thing. I have successfully enabled, isn't it? Okay, let me check whether I have done it or not. Maybe I have missed out 015. So now I have entered the virtual mode of the router for applying Telnet application for the same. Now password for the Telnet service. Let me provide certain password. I have provided the password for the Telnet service 321, and now login. Everybody need to do first login with the password, then only they will be able to access the switch. Okay, successfully done. Exit. Let me try to access the switch from VLAN 2 setup. I will try to access from this computer PC9. From this computer I will try to access the switch. Observe, Telnet followed by the IP address of the interface of the particular switch that I have assigned, VLAN 2 50.50.50.50. so I will try to access the VLAN 2 with this. So from PC2 I will try to access the switch VLAN 2 interface by typing 50.50.50.50. observe this. Okay, so you can see I have successfully accessed from here. I have successfully accessed the switch through the VLAN 2 port. Okay, from this computer. Assume this switch is at the server room and this computer is at another part of the building. So remotely I have accessed the switch. I can do any configuration into the switch. Rather, I need not require to reach physically at the server room to do the certain configuration for the switch. So from any building of the switch I can do certain configuration using the remote Telnet connection. So you can see certain the connection has been closed because I have not provided the password within the span of time. So let me try again. So let me provide the password. This is the password for Telnet. So after typing the proper password, access is given to me. I can configure the switch So let me enable. So again, if I try to enable, now the system is asking me to provide the password for switch configuration. Previously I was asked to provide the telnet password, so I provided the telnet password. After that, now I have to provide the password for accessing the switch. Okay, so now configure terminal. I will configure the terminal. Okay, so I can do anything now. I have access to the switch. So let me do one thing. So let me select the interface VLAN 1. So I have selected all the interface belonging to the VLAN 1. Observe interface VLAN 1. So all the interface I have selected. So I will apply no shut command, exit. So I can do one thing. Let me move out. Let me save. I have saved all the settings. So I will now try to access the switch from any of these 3 computers connected to the VLAN 1. Previously I was not succeeded to connect the switch from the computer that is through the VLAN 1. Now I will try again to access the switch from these 3 computers which are allotted under the VLAN 1. So through the command prompt of the PC6, I will write telnet and this IP address for the VLAN 1. I am trying to access the VLAN 1 of the switch 40.40.40.40. So okay, asking for password. I have successfully accessed. So I have provided the password. You can observe now access of switch is given to me through the telnet. Remotely I have accessed this switch from this computer. So I will enable the switch now to move to the privilege mode. So again the switch is asking for the access password for the particular switch. Let me provide the access password of the switch. Before doing any configuration, I have to provide password. It has to verify that I am the authentic person to access the switch. Anybody will be not able to access the switch. Only the person having those password, both the password, telnet password along with the switch configuration password. If anybody after providing both the password correctly, they will be given access to the switch. Okay, so okay, now configure terminal. Let me do something. I will just disable one of the port. So I just want to let this particular computer out of the network. I want to just move this PC10 out of the network. So to do that, I will just hold the interface FA10. So I have not FA10, sorry, and this is connected with port number 5. This is connected with port number 5. So FA5. Okay, so I have selected this port where this system is connected. Now shut down. Observe. So I have turned off this interface PC0. Sitting from here, I have controlled the switch and I have turned off this particular port where this PC10 is connected. Now this PC10 is out of the network. So let me again connect this PC10 into this network. For doing that, I will use no shutdown command. So again this PC10 is connected to the network, and I can also create furthermore VLAN. Whatever I would have done sitting at server room through this laptop, I can do all same thing from this computer or any of the computer into this network. But one thing we have to keep in mind, that we have to use the telnet login authentic password along with the password to access the switch. Okay, so let me move out. let me move out, let me save. Okay, now I will assign the IP address to this router port. Okay, let me assign the IP address to this daily router. For that I will access the hardware interface of this particular router through this laptop. Okay, observe. Configure terminal. Now interface FA, I will access this interface first, FA01. Okay, observe. So I have successfully accessed this particular interface. Now I will assign the IP address. So IP address 30.30.30.2 followed by 255.0.0.0. So the IP address I have assigned to this port, observe 30.30.32, and this is the subnet default, subnet mask. Okay, now no shutdown, observe. So previously I have assigned the IP address to this Kolkata router, and this particular port I already have successfully turned on this Kolkata router. And now I told you that unless and until I will turn on this Delhi router fast Ethernet 01 port, this network will not live active. So now I have successfully turned the Delhi router fast Ethernet 01 port. You can observe by this no shutdown command. That is why this network has came to life. Okay, so now let me move out from this port. Now I will access this interface, that is fast Ethernet 00. Okay, interface FA00. Okay, I have accessed this interface. First I will turn this interface on. Okay, no shutdown, observe. I have successfully turned this port on. That is why the red color has turned to green. Now this port is active and turned on, but still I have not assigned the IP addresses for this particular port. So let me assign the IP addresses for the port. Okay, so now you can observe there are two separate network I have created and connected to the switch. So this port will have to communicate with two separate network packets. So all the packets that will pass through these two separate network has to be communicated through this port. So it is only possible by implementing Vlan Setup. So I will subdivide this physical port into two different logical ports. Then only I will be able to implement the Vlan Setup, and I can communicate separate network traffic through a single physical port. Observe. So I will now exit from this port, and again I will try to enter in this port interface FA 0x0.10. so I am creating fast sub interface, that is fast Ethernet 00.10. observe. Now I will implement the Vlan setup. I will assign this particular port under a Vlan encapsulation followed by .q.1q, and I will assign the value of the default Vlan. So observe, the default Vlan ID is 1. So these three computers are connected to three port of the switch, and these three ports belongs to the Vlan 1. So for the router sub interface, this sub interface I want to assign under the Vlan 1. Observe. Now I will provide IP address. So let me provide the IP address. Which IP address? As I have already discussed while configuring this Kolkata setup, that the networking address must belong to the same as I have connected these three computers and the interface of the Vlan 1 of this particular switch. So the network address would be 40.40.40.1. so the network address is same, and this is the host address. Host address could be any number as per you decide, you can give. Okay, followed by the default subnet. Okay, now exit. Again I will try to create another sub interface 20. Now I will put that particular newly created sub interface under the VLAN 2. So in this switch there are VLAN 2, VLAN 1 and VLAN 2. So these three computers are connected through the VLAN 2. So that is why I am assigning this particular router sub interface under the VLAN 2. Observe. Now I will assign IP address. So the IP address, the networking address of this sub interface should be same as the networking address of the VLAN 2 connected devices. So these three computers are connected to the VLAN 2 having the network address of 50. So sub interface would have the same network address 50.50.50.1 followed by 255.0.0.0. So observe 50, 50, 51 and 255.0.0.0. Okay, exit, save, exit. Okay, let me observe. See, observe the configuration I have made here. So fast Ethernet 00.10. So that I have assigned with the IP address 40.40.41, and the fast Ethernet 00.20 that is assigned with the IP address 50.50.51. Okay, and other port, that is fast Ethernet 01, that is assigned with the IP address 30.30.32. That means 01, this port. Let me write down the IP address over here. Okay, let me remove this thing. Okay, the IP address for this port I have assigned, that is 30.30.30.2. Observe 30.30.32. Okay, and you can see for the router at Kolkata, the IP address that I have assigned 10.10.10.1 for the fast Ethernet 00.10 and 10.20.20.21 for the fast Ethernet, that is fast Ethernet 00.20. Observe. Okay, and Ethernet fast Ethernet 01 I have provided the IP address 30.30.31. So for this observe 30.30.30.1. So you can observe this thing, that this is a single network. One end of this cable is connected to the Kolkata router port with the fast Ethernet 01 interface. Another end of this cable is connected to the Delhi router port through the fast Ethernet 01 interface. Okay, so as this is a single network, there are two host part connected to different router. So this is 30.30.01 and this is 30.30.02, but the network address is same 30. Okay, now one thing we know, we have to provide the gateway. We have to provide the gateway for these computers. So what will be the gateway? Observe the address for, write down here one thing, FA. Observe FA 0/0.10. So this is one sub interface, FA 0/0.10. This interface is assigned with the IP address, that is 10.10.10.1. Okay, so this will be the gateway. This will be the gateway. Observe. Router, this sub interface has been assigned with this particular IP address. So this 10.10.10.1 will be the gateway for all these three computers which are assigned under VLAN 1 setup. Observe 10 10 10 1. This will be the gateway for these three computers. 10 10 10 1 and 10 10 10 1. Okay, and for this FA 0 by 0 dot 20 for this sub interface, the IP for the Kolkata router has been assigned to 20.20.20.1. okay, 20 20 21. Observe. Okay, that is why for VLAN 2, okay, let me write the VLAN also. This interface is under VLAN 1, okay, and this interface is under the VLAN 2. Observe, this is VLAN 2. So all these three computers should have the gateway which is 20 20 21, because fast Ethernet 00.2, this port will be work as the gateway for these three computers over the network. This thing already has been discussed several times in our earlier lectures. That is why I am telling you several times to watch all those previous lectures I have prepared for you, for the beginners. Okay, so this will be the gateway. Okay, so I have successfully assigned the gateway. Now let me try to send a packet. So previously we were not able to send packet between these two separate network. Okay, now I will try whether we will be able to send packet from this network computer to this network computer. Observe, first packet will be rejected, it will be checked, verified and rejected. So I think I have missed out some tricks. Okay, yes, I remember. So this particular port, okay, where I have connected this fast Ethernet 07 with fast Ethernet 00 of the router, this port belongs to VLAN 1. Observe, let me check out this port from this laptop. I will try to check the Vlan setup. Observe, enable, let me provide the password for the switch configuration. Now show VLAN. Observe, so this cable is connected to the fast Ethernet 07 port of the switch, and this fast Ethernet 07 port belongs to the default VLAN. So that is why while I was trying to send a packet from the network of VLAN 2 to another network which is belonging to VLAN 1, this port is not able to access because this port is a member of VLAN 1. So I have to make this particular port, that means this fast Ethernet 07 port which is connected with the router, this particular port should be the member of both the VLAN. So I will make this port friend of all VLAN that I will be creating over the switch. So to do that, configure terminal interface FA07. So I have selected that particular port, interface fast Ethernet 07. Now switch port mode access, switch port access trunk, switch port mode trunk. Okay, so now this particular port became the member of all VLAN. You can see previously the color was green, now the color turns to orange because this particular port I have shifted from the default VLAN, and this particular port is shifted to the trunk. So being a trunk, this port can be the member of all VLAN, and this port can communicate traffic of different VLAN. So okay, let me move out, exit, save, and So interface trunk, observe. So you can observe this particular port fast Ethernet 07 is now member for these two VLAN, VLAN 1 that is default VLAN, as well as VLAN 2 which I have newly created. You can see, observe. So VLAN allowed and active in management domain, so it can work with it two VLAN. It can work and access the traffic and packets through these two VLAN. Observe. Okay, now exit. Let me now try to send a packet from this network computer to different network computers. Is successful. Let me try again. So first packet will be rejected, second packet will be successful. So observe. So now as many times I will try to send packet between these two separate network, it will be successful all the time. Okay, so now I will repeat the process over here. First let me convert this particular port to be the member of both the VLAN. Okay, password. Let me provide the password. Okay, password again for the switch. Enable, configure terminal, interface. I will move to trunk, switch port, mode, access, switch port, mode, switch port, access, trunk. Okay, now let me check. So show interface trunk. So you can observe by using this show interface trunk command, I can see if there are any port in this particular switch which is the member of trunk, that is member of all VLAN. So that is fast Ethernet 07 interface. This particular interface is member of both the VLAN 1 and 2. Observe. Okay, this port is now member of both the VLAN 1 and 2. Okay, exit. Now I will assign the gateway, as already I have discussed that for VLAN 1 now certain IP address I have assigned, that is fast Ethernet 0x0 dot 10, fast Ethernet 0x0.10. so IP address 40.40.40.1. so this is gateway. Okay, so you know this physical port has been subdivided into two logical port. So one is fast Ethernet 00.10. For this logical port I have assigned this IP address 40.40.41, and this falls under the VLAN 1 category. So this three computer also belongs to the VLAN 1, that is why this will be the gateway. 40.40.41 will be work as the gateway for these three computers. Observe. Observe 40.40.41. Okay, and for the VLAN 2, that is it will be 50 50 50. Okay, observe. So the VLAN 2 of the router, so the physical port has been divided into another logical port, fast Ethernet 00.20, that falls under the VLAN 2, and IP has been assigned 50.50.50.1. so this 50.50.50.1, this will work as the gateway for all these 3 computers, which also falls under VLAN 2 belonging to the similar network. Okay, so all these 3 computers are belongs to same network. Observe 50 50 51. Okay, so let me try to send a packet from PC8 to PC9. First packet will be always tested and verified and rejected. From next it will be successful. So now successful, successful, in progress, now successful, observe. Okay, so now how many times I will be sending packet, each and every time it will be successful. Okay, so now let me try to send a packet from this network, any of this computer, from Delhi to other computer which is situated at Kolkata. So will it be possible? Let me check. So let me try to send a packet from PC6 of Delhi computer to PC5 of Kolkata computer. Fail. So let me try once more. Fail. So let me repeat the process. Failed. Okay, so why it has been failed? Why I could not successfully send packet from any of the computer which is situated at Delhi to Kolkata, or from Kolkata to Delhi, because all the IP addresses which I have assigned to the router port is not known to the adjacent router. So this IP address of Kolkata router is not informed to the Delhi router, and all the IP address which is assigned to the Delhi router port is not informed to the Kolkata router. So both the adjacent routers should be informed about the IP addresses which has been assigned to other routers. So I have to inform this thing by using the REAP protocol. So observe again. So I will try to access the Kolkata router. Okay, so now I will implement the REAP protocol. Observe. Terminal, enable config terminal. So I am in config mode. Now I will apply the REAP protocol. So router REAP. Okay, so I have entered that particular router REAP application mode. Now I will inform about all the network IP addresses which are assigned to the all other routers in this particular network. So network, I will just use the network command under the REAP application, and I will just inform about all the IP addresses of the adjacent routers. So observe. So 10.10.10.1 10.10.10.1. okay, network 20.20.20.1 20.20.21. okay, network 30.30.30.1 30.30.31 IP address of this port. Okay, now 30.30.32. okay, so IP address of Delhi router, this particular port, fast Ethernet 01. So all are the IP addresses of this particular network. I am informing to this Kolkata router. Okay, network 40.40.40.1 network 50.50.50.1. okay, okay, so I have informed the Kolkata router about all the networking IP addresses which has been assigned to these two routers 1 2 3 4 5 6. So I have informed the Kolkata router about 6 different IP addresses which already have been assigned to these two routers, one at Kolkata, another at Delhi. Let me exit. So now I am in config mode. Okay, so let me move out from this particular mode. Let me save, exit. So I will again now inform the Delhi router. The same process I will apply the REAP protocol application and I am going to inform this daily router about all the IP addresses in this network. Not the IP addresses of the computer, but the IP addresses that is connected to the routers. Okay, all the IP addresses that has been assigned to the several router, this has to be informed to each and every routers. Okay, observe, enable config terminal. Now interface, router RIP. So I have accessed the router RIP application protocol. Now I will use the network command to inform all the IP addresses starting from 10.10.10.1, 20.20.20.1, 30.30.30.1, 30.30.32, 40.40.40.1, 50.50.50.1. observe 10, 20, 30, 30.2, 40.1, 50.1. so there are 6 network address that has been assigned to these 2 routers, one at Kolkata and another at Delhi. I have informed all the networking addresses to the router of Delhi. Okay, so let me move out, exit. Let me save. Okay, so now I have informed this to router about the adjacent ports addresses. So now I will try to send a packet from Kolkata, any of the system from Kolkata to the system which is connected with the Delhi setup. Let me try. Successful. Okay, let me try again from this PC to this PC. Successful. So how many time I will send packet? Every time it will reach the destination successfully. Observe. So all the packet has been transformed, or you can say has been successfully received by the destination computers. So I have established this connection successfully. Now what is my motto to show you in this particular lecture, this telnet configuration. So now sitting at Delhi, from this computer I will try to access the Kolkata router. It may happen that the network administrator of Kolkata is not available to duty for the time being. So somebody who is sitting at Delhi has to work with the router which is located physically at Kolkata. So it is not going to possible for the same person sitting at Delhi to reach Kolkata and configure the router. So someone who is sitting at Delhi, if they are provided with the authority password, the person will be able to access the router which is connected at Delhi and do the certain configuration. So that thing I will do with the telnet. For that, this particular router should be accessed through the telnet application. So first I will access this router under the telnet configuration. I will configure and allow this particular router to be accessed over the network, so that anybody could access the router through telnet. For that I will again I will access the Kolkata router from this laptop. Observe, enable. Okay, first I will I will move to the config mode, configure terminal, and I will enable password, because somebody who will be trying to access the router remotely, I have to maintain some security so that anybody will be not able to access, because now this particular router will be accessed over the network. So certain percentage with authority should be allowed. Anybody should not be allowed. So that is why I will provide password for the router. Anybody who will be given the password, they will be able to access the router. Okay, so enable password. Enable password. You can provide any password. Let me provide 1 2 3. Okay, now anybody who will be accessing this router should move and should access with the password. Okay, let me check. Okay, so I will try to access this router again from this laptop. Should I have to provide the password? Will they ask me for the password? Observe, see, password, they're asking me for the password because I have enabled the password mode for the router. So after providing successful password, I can only be able to access the device. Okay, now config terminal. So what configuration I'm going to do over here? I'm just going to allow this particular router to be accessed over the remote client through the network by Telnet protocol, by following the Telnet protocol. So I will apply the Telnet server application to this router. For doing that, I will use this command. Okay, this command will be used. Okay, observe now. This is the Telnet password. So anybody who are going to access this router through the network, they have to provide the password, Telnet password. So now I am allotting certain Telnet password. So the Telnet password is 321. Okay, observe now. LOGIN, that means login. So the remote client should have to do login using the Telnet protocol, and they have to provide this password to get access to the Kolkata router. Okay, fine, exit. Okay, let me exit out, let me save. Okay, okay, now sitting at Delhi from this particular computer falls under the VLAN 2 category. I will try to access the router which is situated at Kolkata remotely. So remotely I will try to access the router from this computer at Delhi, from Delhi. Observe, I will use the command prompt. I did not require to reach at Kolkata and physically access from server room this router. I can do all the working process from Delhi, sitting at any part of the world. So observe, TLNET, Telnet. Now I will access to the IP address. Observe, the IP address is any IP address I can use. There are 3 IP address for 3 port. I can access the router through any of these 3 port, either 10 10 10 1 or 20 20 21 or 30 30 31. Let me try to access the Kolkata router through the port that is 10.10.10.1. Observe, so now the router is asking me for the Telnet password. So I will provide the password 321. Observe, so I have provided the password that is 321. So it was verified and found authentic password. Now as being a network administrator, I am given access to work with that particular router at Kolkata. So I will try to move to the privilege mode by writing the enable command. Now they are asking me for the password, then only I will be able to access the privilege mode of the Kolkata router, because already have enabled the password facility for that particular router. Now I will provide the password for the router, not the password for the Telnet. Password for the Telnet already have been provided before. So you can observe, here I have provided the Telnet password. Now here I am going to provide the password to access the router and do configuration. So 1 2 3. So as already have been discussed, for security reason the password will not be printed in the screen. So you can see, after providing correct password, I have been given access to do any configuration to the router sitting at Delhi. So this is why we should use Telnet. Rather, we need not require to reach to that device physically. Sitting at any part of the world, we can access any networking devices and we can control certain things over there. So that is the utility of using Telnet protocol. So let me move to the config mode. Configure terminal. So let me set a particular name for the router. So host name, So now I am going to change the name of the router. The default name of this particular router at Kolkata is known as router only. Now I am going to change this particular name as Kolkata. Observe, Kolkata. Now I am going to change the default name of the router as Kolkata. Observe, Kolkata. Okay, so I can do any configuration. So now I am trying to make this particular port under VLAN 2 section. I want to make this particular port, that is, let me move to the interface, int interface fa 20.20.20.1. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Fast Ethernet 0.0.20. So I would like to access this particular interface, Fast Ethernet 00.20. This is the sub interface. Okay, you can observe I have successfully accessed this particular sub interface. Now I want to turn this interface off. Will it be possible? Observe. So I want to turn that interface off, but as that particular interface is not physical interface, that is virtual interface, so this was not possible to turn off. I can turn off let me move out. Let me move out from this particular port. I will again move to the main interface. So this is the main interface, not the sub interface. I will turn off this particular interface. Observe, shut down. Observe. So I have successfully turned off the interface. Observe, this particular interface has been turned off. And one thing we have seen in this command prompt, that connection refused by the remote host. Why? Because I have accessed the router through this port 10.10.10.1. So, and this 10.10.10.1 is nothing but the this is the sub interface of this particular main interface. So I have got my access from this particular port, as because when I have turned this main interface off, the connection has been refused, because I could not able to continue with the connection. Okay, let me again turn on this particular port. To do that, I have to access physically from here. Now I can access from the remote system. So this is the limitation. Once you do any wrong, that time you had to face serious consequence, because now physically I have to access. It is not possible to access remotely because I have refused the connection. So I was connected with this Kolkata router through this particular port, which was physically belong to the fast Ethernet 00. So as I have turned this particular fast Ethernet 00 port off, this port turned off means my connection also has been disconnected. So physically I had to on this port on from actually this laptop. Remotely I will be not able to access from here. Okay, configure terminal. Now interface FA 0, no shutdown. Okay, you can observe. Move out. Okay, observe. Now again I will try to establish connection through this particular port 30.30.31. Let me check from this computer PC 8 of daily setup. I will try to establish connection to the Kolkata setup through this particular port, fast Ethernet 01. Observe. Telnet 30.30.30.1. Observe. Asking for password. Let me provide the password. 321. Okay, now enable password router. Now to configuration password I will have to provide. Okay, now I will again move to the configuration mode, configure terminal. I will access the same interface FA 0x0. Observe. Now what will I do now? I will again turn off this particular port. Observe. I have selected the port fast Ethernet 00, this physical port. If I turned off all the network connected to the switch, this 6 computer will go out of work. So observe. So you can see, but still you can observe I can access the router, because in this time I have accessed the router through this particular interface, that is fast Ethernet 01 through this IP. Observe 30.30.31. This is the IP of the physical port fast Ethernet 01. So now I have accessed the router through this particular port. That is why after I have shut down fast Ethernet 00 port, that means this port, all the port has been disconnected. This now, if I try to send packet from this computer to this computer among two separate network, it is not possible, because the router is not working. This port has been turned off. As because this port has been turned off, this computer is belonging to a separate network. So this is not possible to send packet between two separate network or using switch. So this router port is not active. So again, so what I have done, from sitting at Delhi, I have made all these ports disabled. Okay, now again I will turn off, again I will turn on. So no shutdown command. Observe, again sitting at same place using the same computer at Delhi, I have again turned off this particular port at Kolkata. So that is how I can control the networking device sitting at any part of the world remotely through this Telnet communication. I hope you have understood today's lecture. I know for the beginners this particular class lecture could be complex and difficult. That is why I would like to suggest watch all the lectures which I have already prepared in other classes, and this particular lecture you have to watch repeatedly. Okay, so if you think that it is not possible to go through full video at a time, you can watch slowly, you can pause the video, and then after some time having break you can again continue. In this way you can watch this particular video, so that you will be able to understand and do the same by practicing at your home. You must have, I think most of you you need to have a computer at home, having installed this particular Cisco packet tracer application, and practice these things step by step slowly. First write down all the command in your notebook and read the command, and just then by reading the command type it at your do the application and all thing using this application step by step. So don't just rush up through the process of learning. This is difficult for you. I know I know that this particular lecture is not easy to understand. By watching once, you have to rewatch this particular lecture several times. Slowly, part by part you can watch. Okay, so let me complete today's class here. In my next class I would like to come up with the firewall configuration and all the thing that is required to do. That class will be bit more difficult, so many time I would like to suggest you step by step watch all the class. If not once, repeatedly you should watch to understand. Thank you for watching.